All the bumps feel like they're in the right places? Good. Okay. You'll hear little things like that, like, so I just hit my 10-year anniversary in bodywork, 10 years in practice. Yeah, that's a clapping opportunity. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears in those 10 years. So you'll hear me say little things that are just like catchphrases that I've just purified over the years. So if you think something's funny, like definitely ask me. Okay. So let's start with some practical. If you cannot see and want to see, please come. Yeah, gather around the campfire, children.
Feel free to stand up. Join us.
Feel free to stand up. Sorry, my hands are a little bit chilly.
Oh, thank you, Greg.
Good. Okay. So when it comes to reflexology on the feet, I always start with the solar plexus and the adrenal reflexes. Those are kind of like my pulse points for the body. And then I'll also put 3 fingers on the dorsal pedal pulse. So any of you who have an Ayurvedic background or any TCM background, you can actually take pulse through the feet. Interesting. Yeah. If you wanted to fuse some modalities together, it's a great way to start the session, just getting the client acclimated to your touch, but also the idea that you can get a lot of information from these first 2 points. If when you're on the adrenal reflexes specifically, yeah, what do the adrenals do? They produce cortisol. Yeah, they're the 3 S's: sex, hormones, salts, and sugars. So when we look at the adrenal reflexes, palpation-wise, if you feel those reflexes and all you feel are like 2 hard knots, maybe the person is a little bit stressed out. Yeah, maybe you need to do a little bit of extra TLC on them instead of just ramming headfirst right into the tissues. Okay, so once we have our initial kind of feel for it, always make your client comfortable and wrap their foot in fleece. Do you like how I did that? Just a little extra there. And then we'll start with just some really nice relaxation techniques. Yeah. What we want to do from a relaxation technique standpoint is we want to feel how the bones are moving. Not violating scope of practice, of course, but from a technique standpoint, we want to see what is the muscle tension that's present. Is the talus moving correctly? Are the ligaments hypermobile? Yeah? And then we want to create a little bit of circulation. We want to do a little bit of fluff. We want to make sure that the client feels comfortable without invading their space. But can you also see how as I apply this technique, like her whole body is jostling? Yeah? This isn't just a foot technique, people. This isn't just something that you would do to the feet because it's a nice spa modality. The nerve endings on the feet truly connect to everything in the body. So when we access those things, it allows us to work with digestion, work with sleep, work with not just the muscles on the feet, but the muscles systemically throughout the entire system. Yeah? Okay. Then we're going to use the alternating thumb pressure to start walking the reflexes. Alternating thumb pressure or finger pressure, known as thumb walking, is the foundational cornerstone of all reflexology everywhere. Yeah? It's an alternating pressure. So it's kind of like a caterpillar inching along. Yeah? A lot of clients will ask me from a reflexology standpoint if reflexology tickles because it's on the feet. Yeah? But because we're using a thumb walking technique and not a glide or something superficial, we're not lighting up those nerve endings in a way that feels unattentive. Instead, with every press, we're allowing the body to take feedback and say, with that down press, how you doing? Release, move to the next place. How you doing? Release. Oh, there you go. There you go. She's doing great, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Then we go to the toes. And the toes represent the head reflexes, yeah? So when we look at the extremities, not just the feet, but hands, face, and ears as well, we have the toes, which represent the head and neck space. We have the fingers, which represent the head and neck space. We have the forehead, which represents the head and neck space. And then we have the crest of the helix of the ear, which represents the head and neck space. All reflexes that are available to you during a session. Yeah. So don't think that you only need to work with the feet in order to do reflexology. Reflexology is just as easy to integrate into a full body massage as any other modality. Any questions so far? Thoughts? Yes?
I'm just trying to understand what you just said. You have all the different parts that all relate to the same
Yes.
part. So is it important doing reflexology to work all of those or each area, either on the hands, the feet, and the feet forehead?
That's a great question. This is where we get into some nuanced theory. So bear with me as we go down the rabbit hole just a little bit, but I think that you're advanced enough to where we can take it. Yeah. So reflexology is not a press button fix issue modality. Yeah. Lynn's smiling. She knows. She's heard that so many times from me. It's not as simple as pressing the reflex for the head and getting rid of a headache. Yeah. We don't know where that headache is coming from. It could be a headache that's related to hormones. It could be a headache that's related to digestion. It could be a headache that's related to hip impingement. Or the neck, yeah, not just the actual head, but in the neck. So when it comes to working the reflexes, not only do you not need, it's a double negative, to work the toes and the fingers and the top of the ear and the forehead to activate it, but reflexology theory states that when we work the nerve endings, the body then has control over that impulse. You know? So when I'm working the head and neck reflexes, a client may feel it in their lower back because the body has taken that impulse, created what's known as a feedback loop, and then decompressed the lower back because that's where the greatest point of tension is. But if you think that getting rid of the headache is just about mashing the head reflexes as hard and as often as you can, that's treating the body like a meat suit and not an intelligent organism. Yeah. So whatever is accessible to you, if you have access to the fingers, work the fingers, but don't just limit yourself to that again, press button fix issue mentality of somebody has an issue here, so I'm going to press that reflex and therefore I've done reflexology. With all of my clients, I always treat the entire extremity. It's not just one reflex that I work with, it's all of them. Because you never know where somebody's holding their pain. You never know. Yeah. I had a client today who came in to see me, and as I was working, there was a left side hip issue that I was addressing, and all that person felt was their heart space opening from an emotional perspective. Yeah. I was releasing the hip reflex, but the body took it into a very subtle space. And so if I were to say, no, that's wrong, I was in your hip reflex, not your heart reflex, that's invalidating their experience. Yeah. And we don't want to do that either. Does that answer your question, hon? Kind of a roundabout way to do that? Yeah. Oh, there she is. She went to the other side of the room. Okay. So here's a fun little tip for you. So if you have a little bit of reflexology knowledge, just enough to be dangerous, yeah, and you're wondering how to work with reflexes that you feel texturally are different, yeah, you're working through the feet or the hands or the face or the ears, and you feel that spot, and you're just like, what is that nonsense, yeah? So I've just found a spot on her liver reflex, yeah, and so what I've done is I've stopped my alternating pressure. I'm holding that point, and I'm allowing the body to tell me what it needs, yeah? I'm creating that sustained feedback loop through static pressure. So I'm applying pressure, about a 3 out of 10, nothing aggressive, because I don't know what's in this hypertonicity, yeah? I don't want to go overboard, but I also don't want to be feather light. I want the body to talk to me seriously, but not enough to where it feels like I'm dominating the conversation. And then as it tells me whether or not I can go deeper or not, it just released me from that pressure, so I can now move on. And that's how you would treat a point, is when you're walking and when you're feeling, you're looking for those areas that just feel different. Then you're holding those spaces, letting the body adjust, and then moving on with the session. That's called point work. Yeah? Other thoughts from the audience? Questions, comments, concerns? Yeah.
This is just a basic question. When you're thumb walking, obviously you said you pause every once in a while, but is it kind of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2? I mean, is there like a time frame or?
You get into your own rhythm. Okay. Yeah. It's also really interesting because it depends on the client as well. Certain clients I'll find myself like zooming through without really thinking about it, and then other clients it's like I'm walking through mud. It's super slow. But that's very based on the client, but it's not like I'm counting in my head. The only counting that I'll do is when I encounter one of those points, yeah, I'm giving it about 30 seconds. Here's another one. I'm giving it about 30 seconds, give or take. If it doesn't give me some sort of feedback or response, then I'm moving on. Yeah, because I might have felt something there, but the body says, no need. Yeah.
A lot of times the point will tell you when you had enough.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very similar. Anybody who's taken like a trigger point work, you listen to that spot. You don't try to barrel in. You don't try to, approach it timidly. Like you approach it like an intelligent body worker. You ask it what's going on, and if it has something to say, you listen. But we got some lower digestive gurgling, and I was just over the lower digestive reflexes. Fun stuff. So sometimes it does work that way, but when it comes to, hold on, Sam. That's going to be another conversation. Okay. Did I answer your question? Perfect. Anybody else have something that they want to ask or points, clarity?
When it's very hard,
Yeah.
you grab somebody's feet, they're elder, they've been bedbound, they haven't, they're tied everywhere, but the feet like rocks.
Yeah.
So this kind of feels like not just one point, but many, right? How
Right.
would you approach this foot? What would you do in a foot that has those big blocks like that?
Well, on anybody. So if a foot feels completely locked down, that's why we start and stop with the relaxation techniques to get things moving. Yeah. So there is a little bit of a massage element to it, just for circulatory purposes. But like a lot of people think reflexology is similar to acupressure, and it is, but it isn't. Yeah. So especially with my school of reflexology, I'm teaching my students to work via the zones. Yeah. So we're working in line with each toe multiple times, kind of clearing that space. So it's not just finding the stomach reflex, digging into that reflex and holding that one spot. It's an entire zone. Yeah. In that zone, what we would call horizontal zone 3, it has vertical zones in it. So it's like a grid system that we're kind of pushing things and clearing things out. Very similar to how you would clear a lymphatic pathway. Yeah. But instead of just thinking about it as, oh, this person's tight in the neck, so let's unwind the neck. Okay, we're done with the neck, and now let's move to the shoulder. The shoulder isn't just the reflex that you press. You have to get all the connective tissue as well. What if somebody has upper digestive issues which are contributing to the hunched over, that kyphotic tendency? We want to be sure that we're not isolating the reflexes and that we are doing more of a holistic routine, that we are getting some ankle range of motion in there, that we are getting things to loosen up, that we are getting into the cuboid notch, that we are getting into not just the toes themselves, but the metatarsal spaces. Yeah, we're getting all of this to open up, not just the individual reflex.
You have a comment from one of our live viewers.
Oh, hi, live
Says-
viewer.
Hi, live viewers. So you speak to the client for a response or just feel the foot? Just
Feel the foot. And this is my personal standpoint. There are other practitioners who practice differently, but when I'm on the table, I don't want the practitioner asking me how I'm doing every 5 seconds. If you feel something as a practitioner and I'm snoring my brains out, yeah, it's not appropriate at that point to wake the person out of their state and say, "Do you feel that?" That's not okay. Yeah. So my approach to reflexology is I tell the client, look, if you have questions, you can always ask. It's not going to disrupt the magic, but at the same time, your only job is to relax and breathe. Yeah. You don't need to tell me anything, because if I hit that spot, your body's going to react. It's going to jump. Yeah. And I know what that means. I don't need you to tell me, ouch, that hurt, and then ask me a billion questions about what is that reflex? Am I dying? Is it cancer? No. So from my personal perspective, now you can't see the other foot, so I'm sorry, this foot's going to stay naked. Naked foot, don't look. So from a technique standpoint, I let the client be during the session, but that's also because I have a background in foot reading or foot assessment. So when a client comes in, what they put on their health history form, we all know that clients lie. Yeah, we all know that what they come in for may not be the real source of the issue. So from a technique standpoint, I'm not really concerned about what they want. Sounds a little cold, but I'm more concerned about what the body is trying to say. I'm more concerned with whether or not somebody, like I had a client come in the other day, and I said, so how's that constipation doing? Yeah, because I had mentioned it afterwards, after our session. And they said, you know, Sam, I have to apologize because I might have been really rude the last time because I called them on their constipation. Yeah, because the digestive reflexes were very dry, very receded, very cracked. And I'm like, if that was the colon, like, ain't nothing passing through there easy. I'm sorry, you know. So I advise them on kind of what's going on constipation-wise and what can we do dietarily in order to move that around. You know, are you seeing a nutritionist about that? And they kind of shut down. And so at that meeting today, the client said, look, I'm sorry if I was a little bit short, but I have had chronic constipation for the past 12 years. It was just the first time that I've talked about it openly. I'm like, I know, but thank you. You know, so it's one of those things where when a client comes in and they're asking you to kind of keep them in the loop, or they want to know what things are, that's great, and I love an engaged client, but I really want them to enjoy the experience and not think they have to be all up in their head about it. Yeah. Yes.
That brings us to a question that I have about any other condition that you would, or I should say, I would want to go after if it was in any kind of a hip or shoulder or neck or whatever, and you found that on the feet. But in your practice, you are just working on the feet
Right.
through those areas. And if they needed another sort of attention to those areas, you would refer them out, or.
Of course.
But do you find that it shifts the energy towards healing instead of away from healing, which is usually the presentation you have, right?
I'm sorry, say that one more time. And,
Well, you find the cyst or whatever
Yeah.
it is,
whatever.
and it's going in a certain way,
Mhm.
trajectory.
Okay.
So you personally are intending it to go into a trajectory of healing,
Okay.
right? So whether or not that particular area that shows up can be fixed by you or the other
Right.
referral. Right?
Yeah, totally. So working with a network of holistic care providers should be our first priority as massage therapists, period. Not just from a reflexology standpoint. So now we're in the next spaces, and she's got a really nice point here, so we're going to hold that. I had mentioned dietitians. I work very closely with a couple chiropractors in the area. I have neurosomatic therapists that I refer out to. I have some rolfers that I refer out to. I have some mental health counselors that I refer out to, like especially if we see some pretty intense stuff with the nails, indicating some mental blockage, yeah? Some mental emotional aspects that are maybe causing some of the deeper patterns of pain to manifest, yeah? I'll ask them in a very polite way, you know, who's on your healthcare team? Yeah? Or have you considered going for an additional test? I had a client, which was a dramatic case, but this is a good way to illustrate it, is she kind of fell off the face of the earth for a couple months and then came back and she said, Sam, do you remember when you told me XYZ? Yeah? And I'm like, no, hon, I have no idea what I said. And she said, well, I didn't understand what you said at the time and I had no symptoms at the time, but you told me just enough to where when I did get pain in that area, I got it checked and there was a benign growth. Yeah. So that's the kind of work that we do as reflexologists is we're like a feedback mechanism. We're telling we're advocating for the client. Like, look, this is what I'm seeing in the reflexes. Does this match with what you're feeling? And can I, as a limited scope healthcare professional, encourage you to take better care of yourself? Whatever that means. Yeah, if that means going for massages more regularly, if that means, you know, speaking with a life coach or a work coach to maybe transition out of a stressful job, which is maybe causing or contributing to a little bit of the acid reflux situation, or, you know, whatever it may be. But I think that from a reflexology standpoint, the manual therapy is just the first part of the discussion. Yeah. And the second part is having the conversation with the client to assess wellness goals and to say, you know, if you're meeting those goals, great. But if you're not, how can I best guide you or serve you in the direction that's most needed?
Do you feel drained after treatments?
Oh, no,
Online question.
not at all. Reflexology is great from a physical standpoint because this is what I get to do all day. If anything, I feel like a little sluggish because it's sitting and it's not moving. Sometimes, like when I do hands, when I'll do hands in a second, I do hands standing because I can't bear to sit down anymore. But in terms of like feeling drained or feeling lethargic, regardless of what your energetic background is, you know, I think that reflexology is a little bit easier of a modality to navigate from a physical, but also from an energetic standpoint, because it's a very low pressure modality. You're not trying to inflict healing on the body, yeah, which is both easy on the hands and easy on your joints as therapist, but also we are enjoying the benefit of the relaxation just as much as the client is. We're connecting with the client who is on the table, experiencing the work. Yeah, that's what happens when you have a powerful nervous system modality like reflexology or like a craniosacral. Yeah, the relaxation benefits are both client and therapist. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a lot easier than when I was doing massage. Yeah. Hi, hon. How are you, Joanna?
Next seminar. Question, how long does it take to get like the first stage, second stage, third stage degree in reflexology?
Yeah, so reflexology is not regulated by the state of Florida, which is great for everybody in this room, not so good for the profession. So when it comes to getting a reflexology certification, schools have different requirements, yeah? The national standard right now with the Reflexology Association of America is a 300-hour certificate with at least 60% hands-on in-classroom hours. Yeah, but then like I've had students in my program that they apply for a massage job and they're told to just check a box if they do reflexology, and they learned about it in school, even though it was just a DVD that the teacher threw on to, you know, give them an intro, and they do it, you know, because a foot massage is easy, right? And that's kind of the mentality in Florida. So reflexology isn't regulated like massage is regulated. So in order to achieve certification, it depends on where you want to go. Yeah. With me, so it's a 300-hour certification based on the national standard. So I teach my students 1 weekend a month for 12 months. It's a year-long program, and that's 1 weekend, normally the third weekend of every month. And then you submit 50 hours of hour-long foot reflexology documentation, and you get your certificate. 9 to 5, both days. Yeah. But all that's available online as well.
So you have 2 questions. A couple of people have asked, who is this group? They want to know who you're presenting to.
Oh.
And the other is, do you get reflexology treatments?
Cool. So I am presenting to the best FSMTA chapter, the Florida. So the FSMTA stands for the Florida State Massage Therapy Association. So I'm located in Tampa, Florida, for all of my international viewers. And this is the Massage Therapy Association for Florida, our local chapter here in Tampa, where I live. And in terms of getting reflexology, I am lucky to have a very helpful list of students who are willing to work on me at any given time, which is always a plus. Yeah. For me personally, though, I think, and for clients as well, no one modality is a catch-all. Yeah. So for me personally, like before I came here, I spent 45 minutes at the gym. Yeah. Before I came here, I also I follow a specific dietary regimen because this body does not build itself. But then also from From a stress reduction standpoint, I do yoga, I get regular massage, I get reflexology, I do meditation, I do various forms of energy work and spiritual practice that help keep me kind of aligned. So I think the bigger answer to that smaller question is yes, but that's not all that I do. And I think that that's important for practitioners as well as clients to understand, is that if you want me to fix you on the table, you're barking up the wrong tree. Reflexology cannot press the magic button and take away all of the years of neglect. Yeah? But it can start to set you on the right direction with a little bit of relaxation, a little bit of helpful coaching post-session, and, you know, referrals out to other practitioners that might be helpful depending on where somebody is. Cool. Yes?
How long did it take for you, of course, you jumped into it with both feet.
Yeah.
How long did you take to where you could actually feel the points?
That's a great question, and it really came a couple years into practicing. With any modality, like, actually I'm very blessed here tonight because we have Dwight Byers in the room, who is the lineage bearer to the Ingham method, and he was actually my instructor, which, no pressure, right? And so after their intensive training and mastering those routines and just cramming it over and over, I mean, I was seeing 5 clients a day, 6 days a week, just staring at the charts on the wall, like just trying to bang it into my head, like where things were located and what comes next and what the areas of emphasis are and how to do this thing called reflexology. And it wasn't until a couple years in where I was like, okay, I think I got it. I think I can feel what's underneath the reflexes and not just worry about doing the work. Yeah. But that takes different time for everybody. I think for people who have good palpation skills, it might take less time. For people who have a little bit harder time with touch, it might take a little bit longer. But this is a craft. Like, this is something that you never really master. It's not something that you just wake up one morning and you're like, oh, hit my 10,000 hour quota. I'm good. You know, it's something that I'm constantly learning new things. I'm constantly feeling new things as well. So I think that I got to the point where it's like, I'm good. Like, I can own the title of reflexologist, like, because I feel good about it, about a couple years after my training. Yeah. How you feeling, my dear?
Great.
Good. Thank you. Give her a hand, everybody. Okay, so who wants to do hands?
We can record
Oh,
from
you're
here.
doing social media.
We can record. I can do both things.
Girl.
Oh, girl, listen, multitasking queen here.
Want my chair? I'll get another.
Do you want me in a chair or do you
No,
want?
this is
I'm
fine.
here.
Oh, she's gonna be.
Because we can record it. Because if I can get a view of my hand, then it'll be a really cool.
Do you want to do chair instead then?
Whatever you're comfortable with, I can make
Would
it
it be
work.
easier?
Maybe, probably.
Okay. Yeah.
So you want to use that?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry
No, we're
about the
good.
changes in angles, peoples.
Yeah. Sorry, we're going all over the place here. Okay.
All right.
So let's talk about hand reflexology. Yeah. So hand reflexology, just like foot reflexology, is an easy way for us to access the nerve endings, which is what reflexology does. Yeah. So we're stimulating the ends of the nerves, the peripheral nerve endings, and that's what makes the magic. We're creating those feedback loops, but the feet aren't the only extremity that we're limited to. It's not something where if you're not working on the feet, you're not doing reflexology. Instead, we really want to make sure that the client feels comfortable. So I have clients all the time who come in to see me like, Sam, I've heard so much about you. I love your work. I've seen your videos. Like 10,000 people have referred me to you, but I have a confession that I hate getting my feet touched. Like, don't worry about it. Like, we can choose another extremity. Everything's fine. You're okay. You can still receive this work. Yeah. A lot of times the question that I get asked, because my clients see the posters and the charts on the walls, is very similar to one of the first questions we got asked. Do you need to work all extremities in order to get a benefit? Yeah. Or is one more powerful than the others? And I say no, but personal preference is definitely taken into account. if somebody just loves their face getting touched, that's what I like to call a nervous system proclivity. The body is open in that area. Yeah, it's willing to receive. Versus if somebody squirms every time you touch their hands or their feet, that's not going to make for a very pleasant session. Yeah? So we want to give them what they feel the best with, not necessarily what we as practitioners feel comfortable with. Does that make sense? Also, my office is over on Gandy and West Shore, so I'm by MacDill Air Force Base. What happens if somebody comes in without an extremity? Yeah? Being prepared for situations like that. Comes in and they had signed up for facial reflexology, but they're completely in the middle of like a really bad sinus attack. Yeah? Maybe you want to work on the feet instead to pull that tension away from the head. Yeah? So that's the kind of creative thought process that we can do with reflexology, not just being limited to the feet, but same thing when a client comes in with carpal tunnel. It's so beneficial to work the hands on somebody who has carpal tunnel. Learn to work the hands effectively, and every massage therapist will be your client. Yeah? Yes?
If in a situation like, let's say, they only had one foot, could you do the other foot and then the opposite hand?
Yeah.
Would that be the way to do something like that?
Always to treat it sensitively and having very candid conversations. Not like, yo, dude, but asking them, so how do you want to do this? I've had certain students of mine, I have not had the privilege of working on a phantom limb, but students of mine have, where they actually do the entire routine on the phantom limb, which they say works like a charm. I still think that's kind of weird, but cool, you know, in a fun way. But
Easier on your hands.
yeah, easier on your hands, totally, totally. But at the same time, when a client comes in, it's always based on their preference. And it's the same thing like if a client has an open wound on an extremity, yeah, you want to either avoid that extremity entirely or walk around that area. Like pain is never the goal with reflexology. It's a nervous system modality, so we're allowing the body to receive the work, but if the body goes like this, yeah, it's shutting out the benefit of those nerve impulses, and we want the body to not feel like it's threatened. Actually, she had her hand up first. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, when you work, you say, if somebody comes and says, I don't like my feet touched. Now, once you work other extremities, are they more open to try it?
Yeah, sometimes. I never try to egg a client on into trying something that they're uncomfortable with. But sometimes, yeah, sometimes it's just about getting comfortable with your touch. Totally. Yes.
Well, I had an interesting experience working on somebody with a left leg missing.
Yeah.
And I was trying to work on the phantom limb, and I says, did something happen to your left knee? So you could actually feel the acupuncture point sometimes on that where that phantom knee was. It's
Yeah.
weird. I never expected that.
Yeah, and that's where we get into reflexology is a really interesting modality because it treads that line so beautifully between the physical work of massage and the energetic work of different energy modalities. So when a client comes in and they want to talk energy work, reflexology fits into that category. They feel the sensations, they see the colors, yeah. They get that energy work vibe, yeah. They feel like they've been cleansed, that they've been rejuvenated, that their energy channels have opened. But then you get somebody who goes for regular massage and you get them on the table and they say, man, it feels like I just got a full body massage. Yeah. So it's a modality that allows us to access those energetic channels without needing to say either, we're doing something foreign like a TCM where some people get weirded out by that aspect, or be too soft like an energy work where people are like, there's no way that could work. Yeah. We're still touching. Yeah. So it feels like a massage. I got you. So it feels like a massage to them, but we're actually hitting so many layers of the body because we're accessing the nervous system, which connects all systems. Yes.
I missed your intro, but I was just wondering, are you doing some case studies so maybe possibly in the future it will be more acceptable for Florida standards, whatever this happens to be?
So case studies aren't really the issue.
Okay.
The issue is governance.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that if Florida can get a unified mission of what reflexology is, how it works, and get like the Florida Association of Reflexologists, which was previously FAIR, the Florida Association of Independent Reflexologists, was just reformed by Karen Ball. And so we're on the way to start to kind of step up to the plate legislatively again. But at the same time, it has nothing to do with whether or not reflexology works at this point. We need to come together as a community and really kind of put our flag down, and that's where the issue is. But from a technique standpoint, there are so many studies available right now where reflexology is used solo, but also in conjunction with things like acupressure, acupuncture, cupping, meditation, music therapy, things like that. Yeah, so the research is not the issue at this point. However, if you want to follow people who do have extensive research, again, Barbara Scott, who I mentioned at the beginning, who does reproductive reflexology, she wrote a book on fertility for reflexology and has extensive case studies on how reflexology affects fertility, as well as the first study published for reflexology was in the Journal of Gynecology and Obstetrics for reflexology and PMS. Yeah, so a lot of hormonal-based reflexology research. But then Sally Kay, with her reflex lymph drainage stuff, she's being accepted. She received an award, actually, for the, don't quote me on this, the America Lymphoma and Lymphedema Society, something like that. Sorry, Sally. I'm a big fan of hers, and she's a big fan of mine. And we talk about this stuff all the time, but she got recognized by an American institution for the research that she's doing. So I think the research is there, but if we all just come together in the state of Florida to talk about it more intelligently, that's kind of where we need to be going. Okay, switch.
Say hi, everybody. Try not to move too fast, make everybody dizzy.
Exactly. Okay. Any other thoughts, questions, things we want to chat about?
So can you explain a little bit of what you're actually doing there?
Yeah, totally. So hand reflexology is very similar to foot reflexology. Start with a little bit of warm-up, then we move into the walking component. The walking component is what makes reflexology reflexology. That's what differentiates it from the massage aspect of just giving somebody a hand or a foot massage. We want to stimulate the nerve endings. We don't just want to give them a fluff and buff, yeah? So we're making sure that the bones are moving properly. We're palpating the different tissues just before we go into the different areas. And then with hand reflexology, also all of my routines are available on YouTube. If you'd like to watch me do the hand, foot, face, and ears, all of those are available through the Foot Whisperer YouTube channel, so you can see exactly what I'm doing. I record live classes all the time like that. But when we look at the hands, we're really opening three major surfaces. We're opening the dorsal surface in between the metacarpals, yeah, which a lot of massage therapists neglect. And I find that the dorsal surface is really where we get those postural muscles for the hands that really open up some of that deeper nerve channel stuff. So we're opening up the dorsal aspect, then we're moving to the fingers, then we're opening up the palmar aspect, which is where everybody loves to receive work, all throughout that thenar and those flexor tendons. And then we go back to the dorsal surface again, because the dorsal surface is just so important. Yeah. But it's the same thing. We're doing alternating pressure and getting the nerves to open. It's a pretty simple modality when you just break it down to its constituent parts. The only thing that makes it seem foreign is that you haven't done it before. So I encourage you, if this is something that you're interested in, just go do it. Try it. Find some videos on YouTube and get started. Lord knows there's more information right now on the internet than there was in the first 6-hour intro class that I took way back when. Like, that instructor had no idea what she was doing. I'm serious. She threw a book down in front of us, she read some definitions, and then she told us to go play.
Wow.
I mean, that was it. Yeah, but that was my introduction to reflexology, and because of that, I took that and I used it with my clients, and I found out that it worked, and then I pursued formal certification. Yeah, So you don't need to have 1,000 hours underneath your belt before you do it on people. Go do it on people. Yeah? That's how you figure out if it's for you and if it works. Yeah.
If you do go do it on people, can you harm anyone?
That's a great question. Only if you violate that natural pain boundary. Yeah. So a client comes in, yeah, and you hit that point that's really sensitive, and then you think, oh, if this hurts, there must be something there. There must be something that we need to work out. Just like massage theory, yeah? If the knot is there, oh, if we just press harder and faster, that's where pain happens, yeah? But if your intention is not to harm the body, even when we get into the aspect of pregnancy, reflexology and pregnancy in terms of causing abortions or triggering miscarriages is a total myth in my experience. I've had clients come in to see me literally writing on their health history form, "Get this baby out of me." And I have not been able to induce labor. And I've tried. It doesn't work that way. Because if the body doesn't want it to happen, it will not happen. But if you're not listening to the body, and when the body says stop, that's when you get into harm territory. Yeah. But you're not going to royally F somebody up because you pressed a spot on the foot. Yeah.
When you're not sure, you go in slowly.
Yeah.
And release slowly. Just hold it and release slowly, and then at a 90-degree angle.
Yeah, totally. I mean, just common body work stuff. But it's a catch-22. If we use that same logic, like, what if I hurt somebody? Then that same barrier to entry is what's going to stop you from realizing that reflexology can't hurt somebody. So we just want to give you enough freedom to say, do it, try it, it works. But as long as you're conscious and you're not trying to invade the body's systems, you're fine. Yeah. One of my very first clients, and I tell this story a lot, so forgive me if you've heard it before. One of my first clients who came in to see me, she had canceled multiple appointments because she had IBS. And when she came in to see me, she actually could not lay face down on the table because of her abdominal pressure. And so we flipped her on her back, and I said, you know what, why don't we just do some reflexology on the feet today? Yeah. And this is before I had certification. This is before I had taken any courses whatsoever except that one day intro. Yeah, so I had no idea what I was doing, those poor clients. And after the session, she called me and she said, I don't know what you did, but I want that every week from now on. Just that. I was like, okay. Not only did I not kill her, which was a legitimate concern, but she loved it. And then when I put reflexology on my website, I got like 5 referrals that week because people were looking for the modality. They wanted to feel that sensation that, frankly, reflexology is the best at producing. It drops you down into this altered state of consciousness where the body is just floating in this suspended state of awareness, and you're kind of here, but you're not here, and you feel sensations, and you know things are moving, but you're not really sure where or why, and then you wake up and you just feel like you're a new person. And I've not found a modality today that does that exact same thing. So I think that when it comes to me advocating whether or not you should try it or not try it, I err on the side of doing rather than taking the back seat.
I would agree with that because it was through Sam that I started doing it, and I now have several clients. One has a foot that's constantly in a brace, and we've awakened not only the foot and the toes, but the leg and the color of the skin. Everything has changed. It's really worth, just go for it.
Yeah.
Every now and then I tickle the top of his big toe and say, this is your brain, how does that feel?
It's fun stuff, yeah.
Since a lot of people associate reflexology with the feet, do you get a lot of people that come to you that have feet issues?
Oh yeah. all the
You
time.
work on plantar fasciitis a lot?
Yeah, so plantar fasciitis, Morton's neuroma. Anybody know what a syndactyly is? It's where toes are fused together. You can't really work on it, but it's just something fun that you get to see when you're in the world of feet. It also means somebody is married to their work from a foot reading standpoint. So when a client comes in, most of the time, because my client started calling me the Foot Whisperer and the name became the brand, I get a lot of clients coming to me for not necessarily reflexology, but for foot pain and foot issues. Yeah. So a lot of that was me not just taking my reflexology training, but also incorporating a lot of my PT stuff, a lot of my background in the muscles, the bones, the ligaments, understanding how things are connected, understanding why certain pain comes to the surface, and then pairing that with the foot reading aspect, the assessment aspect of, if somebody comes in with a Morton's neuroma, which is classically defined as a nerve impingement at the distal metatarsal heads, yeah, but there's no impingement, there's no inflammation, there's no sign of a neuroma, then where could it be coming from? Yeah. Thinking critically is also part of that discussion, not necessarily just, here's my foot, fix my problem, but understanding as a reflexologist, you're a detective. Yeah? You're trying to figure out what the reflexes are saying and what they're saying in relation to what the client is coming in with. So there are so many times where a client comes in with one thing and I actually have to coach them on something else. And we all know how many times clients come in with back pain, but it's actually coming from a hip, a knee, yeah? It's the same thing with reflexology, except instead of palpating the muscles, we're palpating the reflexes and getting a feel for what the body is saying through the extremities as a window into the larger picture of the body.
Right before you paused on that point on my hand, you're still moving, and I got this sensation of almost wanting to pull my hand out away from you.
Yeah.
And it was just weird. It was almost instinctive. Like I had to really think about controlling it. I don't know where it came from. It was very interesting. And then you stopped. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
So, just sharing.
Right? And that's the weird, freaky voodoo stuff that reflexology does. Yeah, it's fun. It's like reflexology is a modality that allows you to speak, thank you, that allows you to speak with the nervous system. And because we're speaking with the nervous system, we get the privilege of doing so many interesting things that a lot of other modalities don't get to do. Somebody do a time check for me?
7:38.
7:38, do we want to take a break or do we want to keep going?
I'll leave that up to you and the group.
Break? Keep going?
Keep going.
Okay, keep going. And we're going. Okay. Face. Okay.
Do you need me to sit or stand?
On the table, please. You are much taller than our last guest.
Sorry,
No,
I'm
it's
a
okay.
giant.
Go for it.
Call me Amazon.
So facial reflexology, actually let me have you take off your shoes, feet here, and then lay back on the pillow. Yeah, like get comfy, girl. So reflexology is not just on the feet, it's not just on the hands. We can also do face, and then we'll do ears next. When a client is coming in, actually scoot back just a tad for me. Adjust the bolster. There we go. Perfect. When a client is coming in for reflexology, we need to be versatile with our extremities, but then also making sure that they get all nice and comfy and cozy, wrapping the feet, making them feel all nice and warm and comfortable. And reflexology is not just about treating the reflexes. It's also about, it does tread that line, like structural, like intentional working with foot issues and muscles and bones, but then there's also that spa component to it, which I find so lovely. Okay, so yes, go ahead.
You were saying that you received signals as you were doing the feet from the person. Is that signal as loud as when you do the hands and the face as it would be on the feet?
Yeah, totally.
So you get that communication.
Yeah, the only thing that's different with the different extremities is whether or not somebody has experience with that extremity. Sometimes my students get so conflicted with the face and the ears because they haven't really gone into the face and the ears. Yeah. So when a client comes in, the tissue responds the same. It's the same feeling of different texture, but what is different is the terrain that you're working on. The reflexes are the same, but how you feel them is directly related to whether or not you're actually, you know the difference between a hypertonic area around the zygomatic bone and a hypertonic area kind of in the center of the palm.
How much time do you spend on each extremity around the face? Would you spend all of your time on the feet or all your time?
It depends on what a client expects. When a client comes in to see me and they have no expectations, I always do an hour on the feet. That's what I suggest. That's my go-to. If a client comes in with specific issues, like carpal tunnel, like TMJ, like tinnitus, like, you know, a neuroma, clients look at you weird when they're like, I have a foot problem, and you're like, I'm gonna work your face today. It makes them feel uncomfortable that you're not touching the part that hurts. Yeah. But when a client comes in and they're new to reflexology, the feet are a very benign extremity for me to work on. And a lot of massage therapists will even skip the feet. I know, it's a travesty. Okay, so now we've warmed up the tissues with some relaxation techniques. We're now doing the exact same walking of the zones. Yeah?
And are you doing just one side?
Yeah, just one side. So the face is one, but we divide it into left and right. So we start with the right side first.
Is there a reason why you start with the right side first?
Because if you don't, they spontaneously combust.
Oh.
Try it. That's all I gotta say. No, it's just because I was always trained to start on the right, and I just never shook the habit.
That's just personal preference.
Yeah, just personal preference. I mean, feel free to start on the left. Even when a client has a left side dominant issue, I'll start on the right. But it's just, like, again, when we're working with nerves, the rules are different. Yeah? It's not about going to the direct place of the issue. It's about treating the body as a whole. Not just, like, if somebody has a left side issue, starting on the right side, or the left side, and just hammering away on that left side and not touching the right, like, that's a shame. So we wanna give the body an equal opportunity on both sides, but then we also wanna make sure that we're not neglecting one because we think that it's better to do it this way or that way. Yeah. No, I mean, it's customizable. Everything in my office is customizable. So when a client comes in, and we're working with them through the reflexology process. Some clients want the air on, some clients want the air off. I have thousands of blankets at the Institute ready to be whipped out at a moment's notice for my clients who get cold like I do. We use hot towels, we have eye pillows. You know, I really go through all the steps to make sure that my clients feel comfortable. If a client is pregnant or has an issue where they need to be elevated, I make sure that they're elevated. But I do use this setup, like this is my traditional setup. Yes.
Would you consider doing both sides at the same time for the face?
No, and the reason for that is because palpation-wise, it gets very confusing. Yeah. So if, especially like right now, we're in zone 3. Yeah. Zone 3 on the right side is home to the liver gallbladder reflex, as well as the upper half of that right kidney and the tail end of the pancreas. If I were doing both zone 3s at the same time, stomach is on the left, spleen is on the left, a majority of the pancreas is on the left, and the upper half of the left kidney is on the left. Like, my nervous system would just get overloaded. Yeah. And it would be a rather short session. So I kind of want to draw it out, but I also want to make sure that I know what I'm feeling, which is the same way why I wouldn't work both feet at the same time.
Don't be shy.
Well, I mean, ergonomically, it's easier to do it on the head than it would be.
True. Yeah, and I'm sure that if you wanted to, go for it. But I'm just saying that I find it better, especially because my school revolves a heavy amount on palpation of the reflexes, on assessing the state of the reflexes. I want to make sure that a client doesn't leave the table without me feeling every square inch with 100% of my attention. And if I'm working both sides at the same time, that attention is split 50-50. So right now we're in her digestive reflexes on the face. And so we're just holding that because there's a spot here. Any other questions, things we want to talk about?
Can you tell when they don't have an organ?
That is a good question. And it brings up the topic of surgery. Yeah. So when a client's body adjusts appropriately to a surgery, there is no sign in the reflexes. When a client's body is traumatized by a surgery, it is 100% red flagged in every way, shape, and form. Yeah. But it all has to do with whether or not the body was able to heal from that experience. Yeah. There are clients that, I got you. There are clients that come in who all I see is just reproductive distress. And I ask them, I'm like, so what's happening in that space? And they're like, I just never recovered from my birth, from my, like, the pregnancy that I had. You know, birth was very traumatic for me. And so my literal reproductive organs never recovered from that. I've had multiple surgeries, I've had reconstructions, but for some reason, it's just not right. And you can see that in the reflexes. But then I've had moms who have given birth, 5-6 times. And I'm like, I don't know what you're eating, but, so we clear the zones. Now we're moving on to the opposite side. Yeah.
Do you have to postpone reflexology during the healing process after a surgery? Do you have to wait?
That's a good question. I always leave that up to the client. The one thing that I want to be as acutely aware of as possible is pain. Yeah. I don't want them on my table either chock full of pain meds or like gritting their teeth throughout the whole time. Yeah. So the other factor would be if they're cleared for body work. And I say body work generally, yeah, because I don't want them going behind their physician's back if they have an issue saying, my reflexologist will take care of this. I don't want that power, yeah. I don't want them to think that I know better than their physician. So when it comes to a client post-surgery, we have to have a conversation. Mm-hmm.
You have a question or comment, question. Can you please spend a couple of minutes describing how you document soap notes in a reflexology session?
That is my least favorite question because I despise notes. Absolutely despise them. The way that I track clients' notes is through our online appointment software. Yeah, so I know when they come in, I know their first and last name, I know the type of service that they had, when they had it. But in terms of actually charting their progress, like a soap note, I don't take notes. Oh my God, travesty. And the reason for this is a couple-fold. Yeah, when I sit down with a client, I would rather treat them like a new client every single time. I had so many clients come in to see me where I would bring up the issues that they talked about and I wrote down in that first consult and they'd be like, what shoulder issue? Yeah. I'm like, wait, hold on. The shoulder issue that was so debilitating that you were in tears last time? That shoulder issue? I'm like, oh no, that's fine. Like, so what? I would rather have a fresh conversation every single time and not be biased. And then the second part of it is from a legal perspective, I don't want my notes showing something that I don't feel comfortable showing. From a scope of practice perspective, reflexology is not a viable modality to take into a courtroom. Yeah. So if I thought that it would be beneficial for a judge to see somebody came in and I felt such and such in the low back reflexes and the judge not looking at the sheet and being like, yeah, maybe then I would take noting a little bit seriously. Yeah. But in the state of Florida, we're just massage therapists with a fancy piece of paper. So from a certification standpoint, girl, can I tell you the amount of notes that I did? I did 100 to get certified. I did an additional 90 in order to get nationally certified. I've done so many continuing ed hours on soap notes. I'm about to do multiple other soap notes for Sally Kay with her lymph drainage, and then Barbara Scott with her reproductive reflexology. Like, I minimize those notes as much as possible. But when you're learning, they are an invaluable tool. Yeah, because they teach you how to think like a reflexologist. But from a day-to-day session perspective, they quickly bore me. And I would rather focus on the fun stuff. Like doing talks like this. See, right now, I'd still be doing frickin' notes. Just saying. Not fun at all.
Good answer.
Okay. Anybody else want to?
Are you teaching the lymph?
No, I'm not. Not yet. No, Sally has the market on that, and she teaches it way better than I ever could. Oh my God, the things that she was not supposed to show me that she showed me, like with the research that's coming down the pipeline.
Remember, you're on live.
Yeah, like, oh my God. Well, and it's not bad stuff. It's just like the things that we're able to see clinically, that we can look at the lymph moving moment to moment without touching the lymph. Just like, to think that we couldn't do that, 20 years ago, but then also just to think from a reflexology perspective that we can prove that you don't need to touch a system in order to affect that system. Like, it's just so powerful to just see that on camera. Yeah. But from a teaching perspective, I specialize in the assessment aspect. I like looking at the extremities and seeing somebody's dysfunction right before my eyes. I like bridging the gap between physical and mental emotional. I like knowing that there is a window into the body through the extremities, and that's what I get a kick out of teaching, is the foot reading aspect. I could teach reproductive, I could teach lymphatic, I could teach all those things, but it wouldn't be uniquely me. So I think that from an educational perspective, my school focuses on feeling and understanding what the reflexes are saying instead of narrowing it down to one specific system where there are so many other teachers that could do that 10 times better than I could. Yes?
Have you witnessed any fibromyalgia patients receiving relief from that condition?
Yeah, totally. And then they go back to their terrible lifestyles. And I say that with the utmost love and respect for people who are in chronic pain, who have been told that they have an incurable disease, who have been shuffled to the bottom of the pile medically. I know what that feels like, and I see the pain on their faces, but at the same time, reflexology cannot offset the hours upon hours of stress, poor eating, and lack of movement. It just can't. There's no way for me to do that. And so when a client comes in with fibromyalgia, I've seen people in the middle of a flare-up, especially with RA and things where you can see the red, hot, fiery, swelling around the joints, yeah? I've seen that dramatically decrease. I've seen people report going from a 10 to a 1 in pain, yeah? But then they come in 2 weeks later and they're back to square one. And that gets very frustrating for me as a practitioner. And so that's why I incorporate the foot reading aspect so much, is not necessarily using reflexology exclusively to say, let me help you, but based on what the reflexes are saying, let me tell you how your body wants you to help you. And that, I think, is a more intelligent discussion. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. Anything else? Just about to wrap up with face. We'll do ears in a second. I know, you're just so excited. You've been waiting the whole time.
Unfortunately, we're probably gonna have to end the live video because we've killed your phone too.
That's okay.
Sorry, peeps.
No, it's gotta
We
go.
don't have
Okay.
anywhere to.
Well, we will sign off officially for the live video, and then this will go on to YouTube. So thank you all for joining. I appreciate it. And then the live video will go onto the Foot Whisperers YouTube channel. So feel free to check that out if you want a replay of our discussion and the techniques.